What is up, internet? I know I'm not as active over here as I used to be, and there's a reason for that. So allow me to explain. This is going to be kind of like I don't know, just a stream of consciousness, sort of longer form post or video. I have had what I guess has been a lot of like pinched nerves for the past 9 years due to a weightlifting accident. I was doing like some uh, weighted lunges, and I go down, and all of a sudden something pops, and I'm having trouble breathing. My right arm will not basically rotate, or like the range of motion is completely different and has been really for 9 years. But for the first time since that occurred today, I got relief. And that, right, I mean, I'm not out here trying to win pity from strangers or saying that my problems are uh, the worst. They're not. Grand scheme of things, they're trivial. But um, those issues basically kind of killed my quality of life for a long time, where I was having to give up a lot of things that I used to do. Okay, golfing, uh, exercise, uh, everything was extremely painful, and it just kind of got worse over time. Where I was even, I couldn't sit in a chair without feeling like I was kind of suffocating, because like you can have nerve issues where that stuff can be kind of tied into your diaphragm, your lungs, all sorts of things. And I would also have trouble focusing because of what felt like this almost perpetual hangover, which, again, despite feeling very, very bad, is quite normal so far as I understand it, and depending on what you're dealing with in terms of having to deal with pinched nerves. So it's not something that is easily going to show up in like uh, right, an MRI or something like that. So it's been frustrating to deal with because, first off, I mean, you're there's so much referred pain, you don't know what the source is or what to focus on. And if nerves are involved, and if you're like kind of overdoing it, or you're trying to stretch or this or that, and you're not addressing the root cause of the issue being the nerve, because that kind of controls the on off switch in a muscle, then you can in fact make the problem worse. So it's like a guessing game, so to speak. And just over time, it got progressively worse and worse and worse, to the point where even within the past year or so, I couldn't sit like in front of the computer for more than about 10 minutes at a time before I had to get up and stretch and relieve symptoms, and that would only last for maybe, I would say, a minute or two at a time, and it would just kind of like, it was this just kind of endless cycle. um, I'd wake up in the morning, and by the end of the day I was so exhausted. By like dinner time, it's like, just I want to eat and go to bed, even if I'm not going to sleep. Uh, to just be like kind of quiet by myself. Um, yeah, that really sucked for me. But yeah, literally for the first time today in 9 years, I was able to sit in a chair and not feel like I was suffocating. I mean, that's wild, absolutely wild. And people look at me, I'm like, hey, you look healthy and all that. And other than this issue, I am. Um, but it has been, I can't believe, I thought I was going to have to go basically for the rest of my life just dealing with being extremely uncomfortable all the time. So, yeah, I guess the moral of the story is don't be a dumbass like Kenny and put things off because it just gets worse, especially if nerves are involved. Um, in fact, you can kind of see how this side of my neck is, for the most part, depends on the angle, but it's like very inflamed through there. That's kind of part of the issue. So I can't believe it. My God, it's been so long. So why am I saying this? I guess to just, hey, in this crazy time, if there's anything that you can kind of look forward to or appreciate, then by all means, assuming it's not anything like super sketchy or right exploiting other people, which that is still clearly happening. Um, but I have no doubt that something like this is probably impacted my mental health to a certain extent, because when you're having to like give up activities all the time because you're so uncomfortable for so long, uh, it can be isolating, I guess, right? And you can't ever relax. Somebody says, hey, go sit in a chair, relax. Well, if you can't even put your arm down on the armrest because it's pinching something and it's so incredibly unbearable, you literally feel like you're suffocating, that's a problem, right? And I spent, I would say, out of pocket easily uh, 40 grand, maybe more, over these past 9 years to try and figure this out. And for the people who know me, know that like I'm just like a inherently a very active guy, and I just kind of had to get used to the fact that this was going to be a cycle that repeated itself daily and never got fixed. Uh, and I can't believe like today, and it's certainly not entirely fixed at this point, but it is. Today was the first time I got some relief, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I got that going for me, which is nice. Cheers. I'm celebrating. Look at that really tacky koozie. How about that? Very classy. In true Kenny Powers fashion. Anyway, yeah, kind of along the lines of just not having, your physical health in check. And I'm not trying to, like, again, virtue signal or say, like, somehow an insane LinkedIn way uh, tie this into how I turn that into motivation to start some business and it resulted in X amount of passive income. All that shit's so terrible. Um, I hope that people can figure out things to appreciate in a crazy period in history. Whether that's like, I don't know, a small win on your front. I don't know most people on the internet. Or, I mean, all the people, I would just say in general, who are extremely honest about, um, like, we'll call it, if you're on Twitter, certain things in various industries. And you know who you are, and you don't have to do that. And that's awesome. Like, I think people forget that they become. We have an entitlement problem in this country, and if anything, I think kind of unrelated, but also not. That is certainly made worse by, ironically, uh, or coincidentally, entitlement spending. So, but uh, yeah, man, it's just I think on top of having some physical issues, which again, I'm in the grand scheme of things, these are not real issues. Uh, if you can find whatever it is in your particular circumstances that gives you a bit of relief or uh, maybe something to look forward to, then that's awesome. So I do think in my world, my perspective on things it is definitely the result of having a healthcare background. When you're exposed to people like fringe parts of society, and it of course depends on where you plug into healthcare because it's such an enormous ecosystem. I'll be the first one to admit that. And that's where like I just see all of these issues very clearly, and if you're talking to somebody within healthcare, especially on the provider side, but really doesn't matter, the whole thing is about the labor force because, you know, typically it's a low margin business. So again, it depends on which business model you're talking about within healthcare, like as a provider, as an example. Um, but people are hurting, and something like Medicaid, and I'm just loosely speaking here, it's just a giant state slush fund that's mostly financed at a federal level, and it just gives states just an insane amount of leeway to just kind of prop up higher prices to just stimulate the lower end, and through things like waivers and uh, other exceptions where you just see enrollment and spending and capitation, obviously all those things just become more robust. So I don't know. I don't know what I'm really saying with all this other than like, I'm glad I'm not in pain. Uh, there are still some good people out there, but then there are also just all these bullshitters. Like this dude I ran into the other day where I was just trying to get him to, and this is like some economist, to just admit like that the labor market is completely lopsided to healthcare, and it's all driven by entitlement spending. And the guy was like pulling teeth with him. In fact, his name is Guy, and I'm not here to call anybody out. I mean, if this, I truly believe if it was just the two of us talking, he would probably just be like, "Oh yeah, like I have to lie." That's kind of his approach. But it really was like we kind of landed on. I'm like, okay, so are you going to admit it or not? I mean, because all this information is public. Do we have a problem in the labor force? And the answer I got was, well, yeah, it's biased and very lopsided to healthcare, but so what? That was the answer I got. And I'm like, okay, well, you do realize that those are very low paying jobs in terms of who is actually filling those roles. We're talking about very high turnover roles, home health individuals, and that can encompass a variety of different like sort of occupations within healthcare. We're talking something along the lines of maybe 50 or 60 grand a year, and it depends on the market. That's not quality job growth. I keep saying that, and it's like slowly but surely people are like, well, I don't understand why I didn't get it getting better. Well, that's why it's not getting better. I'm just as somebody in healthcare, I can speak to that. People in healthcare, the way in which I'm plugged into it, they spend a shitload of time talking about all things demographics because what is that? That is your patient population. So I don't even know what I'm saying at this point, other than don't be a dumbass like Kenny and wait 9 years to deal with an issue that just gets progressively worse and worse and worse. And I don't really know what that has to do with anything other than hopefully I can be a little bit more active on here. So I do appreciate everybody's support on here. I try to talk about things at a very, very granular level, but also at scale. That's the point. To show people what's out there, and it's really cool to run into like-minded folks. Um, there's still good people out there. That's all I'll say.